Released for the Super Nintendo Entertainment System in 1993, Super Godzilla allowed players to take control of one of the most iconic monsters in cinematic history, Godzilla himself. Unlike typical Godzilla games that focused on straightforward action, Super Godzilla attempted something different by blending strategic elements with combat. The game provides a distinct experience that immerses players in the King of the Monsters' journey to save the world from both classic and new kaiju foes. The game was developed by Toho, the Japanese studio behind the original Godzilla movies, in collaboration with Advanced Communication Company. Released exclusively in Japan and North America, it was created during a time when kaiju movies and Godzilla in particular were seeing a resurgence in popularity. The 1990s brought a wave of new Godzilla movies, and the release of Super Godzilla was part of Toho's broader efforts to bring the King of Monsters to new mediums and audiences. The team at Toho and Advanced Communication faced the challenge of adapting Godzilla's scale and power to a home console, rather than relying on simple side-scrolling or beat-em-up mechanics, which had been used in previous Godzilla games. The developers aimed to create a gameplay system that could capture the grandeur and unique abilities of Godzilla, while adding strategic elements that would bring depth to the gameplay. Super Godzilla combined elements of turn-based strategy and real-time action, setting it apart from other kaiju games and creating a gameplay style that was experimental for the time. While the unique gameplay mechanics may have surprised fans expecting a standard action game, the game still offered players the rare chance to embody Godzilla and battle classic enemies. Players follow a storyline that draws on elements from the classic Godzilla movies, while introducing new characters and foes. The story opens with humanity facing an unprecedented crisis, as powerful monsters threaten Earth under the influence of an alien race known as the Vortak. In a desperate attempt to save the planet, the Japanese military turns to Godzilla, controlling him to defend Earth from the Vortak and their kaiju allies. Throughout the game, Godzilla battles familiar foes, such as King Ghidorah and Mechagodzilla, as well as a new, exclusive adversary, Bagan, a powerful monster that Toho originally designed for an unproduced movie. Players guide Godzilla through each level, taking on enemy kaiju and eventually facing off against Bagan in a climactic final battle. The story and characters blend elements of classic Godzilla lore with original content, providing fans with a fresh storyline that stays true to the tone and spirit of the movies. Super Godzilla is a mix of strategy, exploration, and combat, with unique gameplay mechanics that set it apart from other Godzilla games. In the initial phase of each level, the game adopts a top-down view where players navigate Godzilla through various cityscapes, forests, and other environments. Moving across a map grid, players control Godzilla's direction and must avoid hazards, destroy buildings, and defeat military defenses. Along the way, players collect power-ups such as health boosts, rage meters, and energy, which are crucial for succeeding in the game's battles. When Godzilla encounters another kaiju, the gameplay shifts into a combat mode with side-scrolling mechanics. Here, players control Godzilla's positioning, dodging, and approaching the enemy in real time. Rather than using simple button mashing, Super Godzilla introduces a unique fighting system where players build up a power meter by performing basic attacks like headbutts and tail swipes. Once the meter reaches a certain level, players can unleash one of Godzilla's iconic abilities, such as the powerful atomic breath. This combat system combines timing, strategy, and resource management, encouraging players to think tactically about when to strike and when to hold back. Energy is essential, especially during combat. The power meter, which determines how powerful Godzilla's special attacks are, must be managed carefully to ensure that players can execute devastating moves when they're needed most. Additionally, Godzilla's rage meter increases when taking damage or destroying buildings, which can boost his power and unleash stronger attacks. This creates an interesting dynamic where taking some damage can actually benefit players in the long run. The graphics are notable for their time, with detailed sprites for Godzilla and the other kaiju that appear in combat mode. The top-down exploration maps include destructible buildings and obstacles, allowing players to experience the destructive power of Godzilla as they stomp through various locations. The soundtrack, though limited by the hardware, captures the dark, dramatic tone of the Godzilla movies. The music and sound effects work to emphasize the tension of the kaiju battles and add to the overall atmosphere, helping players feel immersed in the experience. The game introduced the character Bagan, who had been designed for an unproduced Godzilla movie. Bagan's unique design and abilities made him a formidable foe, and his inclusion in the game has turned him into a fan-favorite character within the Godzilla universe. Bagan has since appeared in other games and is a frequently discussed character in Godzilla fan circles. The combat system is unique for a kaiju game, blending real-time movement with turn-based elements through the power meter. This hybrid system was an attempt to differentiate Super Godzilla from straightforward brawlers, making players think carefully about their movements and attacks. Despite its mixed reception, the game set a precedent for Godzilla games that attempted to capture the monster's true scale and power. Elements of its gameplay, such as destructible environments and strategic combat, influenced later Godzilla titles on more advanced consoles. The story and tone took inspiration from the Godzilla movies of the Showa and Heisei eras, combining the sci-fi action of the newer Heisei series with the apocalyptic themes of the earlier Showa series. By including classic foes like King Ghidorah and Mechagodzilla, the game connects to both eras of Godzilla's cinematic history. While Super Godzilla didn't achieve widespread acclaim, it has since become a cult classic among Godzilla fans and retro gamers. The game's unique approach and inclusion of Bagan have earned it a dedicated fanbase, and it remains an important title for Godzilla collectors and gamers alike. Super Godzilla for the Super Nintendo Entertainment System stands as a distinctive and ambitious entry in the history of Godzilla video games. Its unusual blend of top-down exploration, tactical combat, and resource management makes it unique among kaiju games, while its story brings a fresh take on Godzilla's battles with his iconic foes. Although the game's difficulty, slow pacing, and complex mechanics may have turned off some players, it succeeded in creating a more cerebral Godzilla experience that pays homage to the monster's cinematic legacy. The game's legacy lives on, especially among Godzilla fans who appreciate its unique gameplay and the introduction of Bagan as a formidable foe. For those who enjoy strategic gameplay and are fans of the Godzilla franchise, Super Godzilla offers a memorable, if challenging, trip through the world of kaiju battles. It's a game that, like Godzilla himself, has survived the test of time and found its place in gaming history as a beloved, if unconventional, classic.